Test mic. Am I audible? Okay. Once everyone is here. Hello to all the debaters. Before we officially begin, sorry. Hello to all debaters. Before we officially
Miri lah, Miri ya. Ay, sumusunod.
Hello to all debaters. Before we officially begin, please type your full name in the details as given in the chat box. For your information, we are live on FB, Facebook. So I hope you guys behave well and good luck. Opposition, can you please type in your names? Type in your names as given in the chat box. Please, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to prelim semifinals of virtual English language debate state level. I am Alden Ostad, Speaker of the House. You are advised to frequently check your chat box as I will notify the time there. Our panel of adjudicators for today is Mr. Umar. Next, we have Mr. Wang Xiongning. Last but not least is Ms. Vimala Devi Nedison Murugala. On behalf of the members of the House, I extend a warm welcome to all adjudicators. Before we begin, let's invite the government bench from SMK, government bench from PADAWAN and opposition bench from MIRI to introduce themselves. Let's begin with the government bench.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Prime Minister for today's debate.
Good morning. I'm the Deputy Prime Minister of today's debate.
Good morning. I'm the government whip for this debate?
From the opposition side.
Hello, good morning. My name is Maong. I will be the first speaker for opposition as well as doing reply for opposition.
Hello everyone, my name is Ryan and I'll be the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Good luck for this round.
Hi, my name is Andrea. I'll be the opposition whip from opposition.
Thank you to all debaters. Here are the general rules for the debate. All speakers are given 8-minute speech. Only 4 minutes are given for reply speech. Point of information can be offered only after the first minute and before 7th minute of your opponent's speech. You are advised to be aware of the following conditions regarding disconnections. For the first disconnection, the timer will be stopped from the last word heard by the adjudicator. The timer will only resume once you have returned to the room. For the subsequent disconnections, the timer will continue running while you are disconnected. If you experience a prolonged disconnection, the adjudicators may act on the issue. He or she could end your speech before you reconnect or instruct one of your team members to continue your speech. Make sure that you mute your microphone if you are not speaking. Without further ado, I call this House to order in the motion. This House proves a world in which there is no formal criticism and awards for art. Let's invite the Prime Minister to begin her speech.
Am I audible? All right, thank you. Timekeeper, I would like to start off my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the Prime Minister from government side for today's debate. And this House prefers a world in which there is no formal criticism and awards for art. Now, before I move on to my arguments, I would like to characterize some of the terms that we are going to use today. First, criticism is the expression of disapproval or judgment of an artistic work. An award is a prize or other mark of recognition. Now, thirdly, formal criticism or formalism is the study of art based solely on an analysis of its form, the way it is made, and what it looks like. Formalism are only focused based on the artist's technique and style rather than their content. And art is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. Now, what we are claiming in today's debate is whether or not formal criticism or awards is actually needed in this complicated community of art. Now, we stand for a world where everyone appreciates art that is unique without the need to critique the content they are presenting and also awarding them. Now, the stakeholders involved in today's case is artists, professional critic, and society. Now, formal criticism emphasize on technique. Other than formal criticism, we shall stand on constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is a feedback method that offers specific, actionable recommendations. Good constructive feedback facilitates positive outcomes and creates a positive working environment. It also provides a safe space where a person feels secure enough to ask questions, seek help, and share ideas. We need to use suspension of judgment when looking at art. Criticism is the opposite of suspension of judgment. For example, we need suspension of disbelief when reading a fictional book. Now, I would like to move on to more arguments. Firstly, we think that firstly, focusing on formal criticism. We think that formal criticism limits the creativity of an artist. There is many criticism, but it's not necessary to choose formal criticism to limit those artworks. Artists are people who love to create what they want, and creativity plays a major role in art. Formal criticism does not work to motivate the artist. It only makes them make more art to keep up with everyone's expectation to win their hearts. No matter how good and perfect your art is, there will always be someone there to critique your art. Secondly, we think that criticism limits the creativity of an artist because critics of different interests and preferences give their criticism according to what they like. Some artists who desire to have their art recognized by many and please those who look at their art will try their best to fulfill the wants of those critiques, which is something that we do not want from our side. This just destroys the originality of the art. No, thank you. And also the purpose for an artist to create. Artists should also create art according to their own life, and criticism shouldn't influence their art style. Artists should be free to create and not to receive the praise of the public, and definitely not solely for awards. A person who creates just because they want to is an artist. Another thing is, no thank you. Another thing is the purpose of art. As I've mentioned before, art should be created out of the desire for the artist to create. We live in a society where we constantly desire fame, praise, and achievements, which is a toxic culture. It is honestly a waste of time to create something if it's just for fame, praise, and achievement. Even if you get these, so what? These are not the most important things in life, but being happy is. And if creating doesn't make a person genuinely happy, they shouldn't waste their time. The beauty and uniqueness of art is ignored in our, no thank you, in our modern society. And we are blinded by our arrogance and greed to be the best in everything. Secondly, putting the perspective from society. Formal criticism already exists in this society. This will cause only strong artists to win. People can use vulnerability to win. Original artists have different mindsets, and we live in a different. Everybody lives comes from a different generation. Different people appreciate different arts. Everyone have different understanding in art. A word and formal criticism will only limit people's thinking and presentation of art to the society. Now, moving on to my next argument, focusing on awards. Awards causes problems. So, what is the purpose of award? The purpose of award is to increase exposure of the artist to the society and also helps increases their income. Now, the causes of award can only make non-famous artists face difficulty to win and hard to increase their exposure to society. They are buried under the shadow by famous artists, and when they win awards, such simple art costs a fortune. Is not a way to make the art industry to appear famous. Secondly, corruption will possibly happen in the art industry in form of awards. For example, bribery, and also just for the sake of promotion, and biased and baseless opinions claimed by a professional critic is not a feasible way. It's not a feasible way to make the artist famous. Now, proposition possibly say that awards help artists to feel motivated and help the artists gain the recognition they deserve. We think that famous artists only last for a short while because eventually there will be another person outshining them, which results in a competition between artists, which isn't the plan here in the first place. Secondly, living with this growing and developing society, these artists will have to follow other people's preferences or trends just to be able to gain recognition and win awards. For example, let's went back to the times when simplicity and minimalist art is a trend. A lot of artists have to follow this trend in order to impress dumb, wealthy people's preference that only lasts for a while. This will only tire them and limit their uniqueness of their arts, causing them to slowly fade out of the art industry. For example, if you know the forgotten history of a famous artist we all know, Pablo Picasso himself ran out of ideas as he lost his creativity to keep winning everyone's heart, and eventually when he get older, he steals other people's art and making people thinking that it's his. Another example would be, and other than this because awards, the process of awards causes NFT, and also, for example, rappers in SoundCloud make similar music just to be famous. Now, the possible replacement of award that we suggest is first physical sale for income, and secondly exposure on the internet. If opposition say that award is not the only way to increase the exposure to the society, we say that is why award is not necessary for our industry. Only famous and strong artists will win. Who is the one to determine the winner? How do we prevent corruption in the art industry? And everyone have different perspectives and definition to art, which I already emphasized to you now. The bottom line is that criticism is almost useless if you think more about it. An award should not be used to appreciate the artist that struggle to only make art according to people's preference and not their own. So stand team government. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 6 minutes and 42 seconds. Now, let's invite our leader of opposition to begin with his speech.
Can I be heard? Thank you. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Mr. Speaker, we believe that criticism within art is not something to demotivate these artists. We say it's something that promotes them to become even better. We say that team government, they don't understand what kind of criticism works. Therefore, that's why they understand the reason as to why they don't take PADAWAN in the first place is because they know how to take, because they don't know how to take like constructive criticism, in which we believe the on-site opposition, we're going to provide you as the reason as to why formal criticism as well as awards going to be like beneficial towards this artist. I was like over the improvement of arts in general. Few points of rebuttals before I move on towards the case for site opposition. Number one, site government clearly talks about regarding to how arts doesn't actually awards itself doesn't actually, it's not actually the only way or the platform only to increase the exposure of the art made by the art itself. And then they're going to further talk on how like the way they're like the counterfactual and the solution they're going to have to like to as an alternative for awards, it's like by giving exposure on the internet. Need to remind you, the exposure regarding to art itself of the artist within the internet is happens symmetrical on both sides. I mean, at Honors of the House, we also have exposure of like the internet itself. The reason as to why Honors of the House we believe that awards itself is far more better because like when people like see awards as something like as a, when you actually receive achieve awards, not only that you gain like national prestige and so on. However, it kind of gives a more benefit, a more reason for artists to become better than the rest because that's just how competitive it is. We say that the way and how awards are being given are not consistent is like one of the benefits and like one of the opportunities and how artists themselves are going to like gain fame and so on and then giving the artists themselves the incentive to like gain awards to be better than the rest because they wanted the awards they wanted. Moving on to the second rebuttal for site government. They further talk on how formal criticism limits your creativity. Need to remind you that from formal criticism, artists can explore like other ways of like in order to improve their art. Let's say, for example, these artists have been like more focused upon abstract and so on. However, like when he faces formal criticism, especially from like someone who like considered to have deeper knowledge regarding to art, he takes that formal criticism as a way and as an opportunity to improve himself, in which he will try to mix up the art that he has, in which he will further improve and enhance the art that this particular like, individual has. Moving on to the case for site government, what are our abilities here? Two brilliant. Number one, how do we maintain the relevancy of art? And number two, a war without formal criticism and awards for what? A war without how do we put together like a war without formal criticism and awards for arts brings harm towards the artist themselves. Few points of recharacterization for site opposition. So regarding to art itself, as what governor already told you, is subjective. Therefore, like arts can be seen as basically anything: painting, movies, books, music, and etc. As long as anything that expresses emotion, expresses towards the people on the ground, we say that's considered to be art. Regarding to formal education, formal criticism, we say things like education, like masterclass university, software profession within the art industry itself. These professionals are more likely to understand the subjectivity of the art and how to improve of the artist's standards. Regarding to awards, we say that any kind of awards, like the Grammys for music awards and other well-known awards that are considered to be relevant to art itself. The reason as to why awards have been in place is like to acknowledge the achievement of the individual who excels in like any particular either music, painting and so on, basically anything, in which is going to be like a better platform for them to promote their art and to promote the art where people globally can appreciate in the first place. So before I move on towards my argument, any POIs? 3, 2, 1. Try to engage. First argument: delegitimize art. So for two analysis we're going to do this. First analysis: art education institution will be abolished. The framing we're going to this is like education institution provides formal criticism. For example, masterclass professor that are actually professional within this field. We say that these are the people are gonna like. We say that this kind of like education is going to be abolished if we were to like not having a formal criticism happen within the status quo. How does it happen? We say formal criticism would be seen as imperable to give out, especially to a piece of art that is highly subjective. But these professors are likely the people that have been in the industry for so long, not having a narrow-minded and judge art based on solely on the objective and unfair towards the metric. Like on the counterfactual, given the criticism there are aligns with like artist interpretation, we say that it like further helps more on how the artist is going to improve themselves in the end of the day. What are the impact of this particular argument? We say that when the education institutions are abolished, people are not able to pursue any career that is regarding to a career to their greatest extent because there's no tertiary education that ensures quality of teaching would exist. We say that the world of art within the status quo, which is going to happen on site government, is cease to exist because of how there's no institutional body that's going to like critic or critique art in general. This creates a worse quality of art in the end of the day because they don't actually have innovation or no creativity regarding to any good of expression or how people should do art in the first place. Second analysis, lessen sources of income for artists. So on proposition's case, it has been like premised upon the fact that artists should do art for the sake of art and not for any message of gain compensation. This means that source of income for artists wouldn't be emphasized on because that would mean that there is a profit incentive for artists to make their work. So what are the impacts of this particular analysis? So this is starving artists that causes industry to plummet, in which we see that artists will becoming jobless and having lesser income and won't have much funds to have food on the table. Moving on to the second argument, the incentive for artists to constantly improve their work. Note that there is a lot of competition within art. That is to say that people are constantly competing to get an award. The problem within proposition, without a form of formal criticism, to improve improving your work will be very difficult. Not only that, this will order further makes the artists to condone within their own bubble and not having any incentive to try out new things, which potentially maximize their potential, which could overall improve the quality of art within status quo itself. Why is this true? Handing out awards is the prerequisite to fame and success. Therefore, getting these awards would boost your status in the art industry. Not here that the best way to get this prerequisite of fame is through formal criticism from other people who have flourished within the art industry itself. We do see that informal criticism is still a short-term solution of fame and success, but it's more harmful in the end of the day. To artists, they view this informal criticism as illegitimate because they're from like average people who doesn't know the deep knowledge of art. In the end of the day, these artists won't even try to improve because they feel insecure about the art that they're trying to showcase towards the public. In this instance, where they do show their art, they will keep it. They will keep following their advices within, which limits the creativity and the choice of the artist itself. Which in turn, this particular argument fits out the argument coming from said government. So what are the impacts of this particular argument? So informal criticism objectifies art, which is we consider to be harmful. When informal criticism in this context is your only vessel of improvement, you will succumb to their opinions and what they feel as a majority. That's what your art will look like. Therefore, you improve your style of art towards objectivity rather than improving the subjectivity, leading to the lack of uniqueness regarding to the artist itself. Uniqueness is important in two key respects. Number one, it gives art variety. It removes the binary aspects of art. Art was never meant to be black and white. However, proposition fits into this meaning when these artists have no choice but to lean towards the majority of the people who criticize formally. These people also do not have a sense of subjectivity on art. Even if you wanted to argue that they did, we still say that it's false because their subjective derives from other artists that are well recognized. Number two is to recognition of artists. Artists are recognized by their art, the little details that separates them from the and other artists. Therefore, under proposition, when you deter these artists away from subjectivity, art becomes binary, a right or wrong decision rather than a gradient of option. However, on opposition, art happens in a gradient, as formal criticism is not one of the changes art completely rather changes art for the better. That's all for me. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 8 minutes and 14 seconds. Now, let's invite Deputy Prime Minister to deliver his speech.
Am I audible? Okay, timekeeper, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Opposition doesn't want to make themselves clear because they spoke so fast and their pronunciation isn't very clear. So I'll straight move on to my arguments. Art is created by artists. Why do they create these arts? They create these arts to be sold for money, to be awarded and be famous, or even for praise and be arrogant. No. Artists should create art with their creative thinking and provide inspiration through their art to people. Art is also a form of connection between people and their feelings. Sometimes artists use art to express their feelings like joy and fear. When they are happy, they create cheerful art. When they are sad, they might create more emotional art pieces. When they create those art pieces, it is a process where they can express their emotions and feelings, and they can just enjoy the process. As stated by my Prime Minister, the purpose of art is not for recognition and praise, but to just create regardless of what the public thinks of it. An artist can draw a stick man if they think it's a marvelous drawing and it makes them happy, then that's great. It's art, there is no standard. Artists should draw without having to care about their skill level, but just because they enjoy and they like what they are doing. Negative comments can only cause the artist to be scared about whether their art will be well received or not. This is already not art, but an action to please people and to fit in. Our society needs to change, and artists have the right to create anything they want and feel contented rather than spend a long time perfecting an art piece just to be sad and it didn't win the competition. Beauty is the eyes of the beholder. Art is marvelous because the artists enjoyed making it, not because they stand on stage to receive an award for creating those art. We as the government side believe that art should be appreciated as how a person enjoys it, and their opinion should not be influenced by public recognition. Some people make really, really good art, but it is underrated and rude. But if an art piece becomes famous, everyone will praise it, and even though some of them still don't really think the art piece touches their heart and should be truly appreciated, they still praise it since others are doing so too.
POI.
Rejected. Art is beautiful and its value should not be decided by the amount of achievements and recognition the artist has gotten with it. People will appreciate art as how it is and not by fame, praise, and awards. We live in a society which art is valued by the amount of fame it has. For artists who are not well known, their art only gets trashed by random people. But those art that are famous is respected worldwide. Awards are everywhere, and only those who receive it will get recognition, and not all artists are treated the same. Not all artists are treated the same. Some famous, because there are famous artists and underrated artists, and this will cause a lot of problems like NFT and also bribe and issue that causes local artists can't expose their exposure to the outside world, which stated by my Prime Minister. Only famous artists can reach a higher exposure, and it's unfair to underrated artists. Those artists that receive awards will be more exposed to the citizens, and they can increase their income because they are becoming more and more famous. There will be more people going to buy their arts from them, and they can earn money. And this also means that underrated artists need to work harder and harder and face difficulty to win, to get their award, to increase their income, and thus be exposed to society. Corruption might possibly happen because many non-famous artists may steal another artist's art and make a similar one to be famous. So instead of awards, artists can just sell their art physically for income to cover their basic necessities, and they can expose themselves through the internet, just as stated by my Prime Minister. So with all those explanations above, it is truly clear that the government should provide criticism and awards for art. With that, I raise my case.
speaker spoke for 5 minutes and 5 seconds. Now, let's invite let's continue. Let's invite Deputy Leader of Opposition to begin with his speech.
Hello, am I audible? All right, just give me a moment to arrange my speech.
Sorry.
All right. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. To find beauty in art is to appreciate the subjectivity in it. Unfortunately for proposition, they place no relevancy in art and provide no incentive analysis as to why these artists would continue pursuing in these art industries. We don't think that bashing on our pronunciation is a substitute for actual analysis on why the motion stands. They kill the intrinsic harmonies and colors of art. We keep it alive on ours. 2 layers of analysis that I'll talk about before moving to arguments. Firstly is on the relevancy of art, and secondly for the incentives for artists to grow. But before that, let's take a look at their comparative, right? Proposition has to defend a world in which art is delegitimized and how every passionate artist has lost their motivation to pursue in the art industry because there's no awards for them to provide them recognition, and there's a lack of formal criticism that reduces the capability for individuals to actually grow and appreciate their uniqueness. Proposition argues for happiness, but when happiness is achieved from the appreciation of your very own art by virtue of fame, because that's when you earn the most validation, we win from happiness from the very get-go. Firstly, then on the relevancy of art. We told you from first that in a world where there are no standards of art, it only causes the delegitimization of art because no one sees the value in pursuing art or even seeing these art projects or products in the very first place. Proposition then argues on how criticism limits people's creativity. 2 sets of responses. Firstly, that this is extremely not true. Formal criticism is provided by professional artists that provides constructive feedback to improve on their uniqueness and their style on how they actually have their perspective and their interpretations of art. Professional artists have the natural incentive to maintain the standards of art by judging judiciously, and this takes out their claim of corruption. But even if you don't believe that, I'll give more analysis later on. Please keep your eyes in chat. But secondly, criticism happens on both sides. I just want to note that criticism that we have on our side is that we have formal criticism. What proposition has to defend is a world in which they get unsolicited advice via social media. Thus, we flip this claim and say that the criticism that they get on their side further limits the freedom of creativity because 1, they make the artist feel insecure because these are informal comments that are extremely nasty and disgusting for the incentives of artists to continue posting their art. And secondly, that these criticisms in Instagram comments aren't from certified or qualified artists who enable for more emphasis on your unique style and actually improve your style in art to actually give you an incentive to improve. They then come back and talk about how trends and how this reduces uniqueness. I just want to note that this is absurd. Trends are everywhere in society, but what proposition actually lacks out on analysis is A, why people feel coerced into this trend, B, why people will be stuck in this trend for a long period, but C, why there will be only one dominant trend. But second set of response, even if they like assume all of answered all of these questions, the problem is that trends happen all the time in society. That's why we have different eras in classical music. Like for example, the classical era to romantic to impressionist to contemporary. But thirdly, most crucially, notice how multiple trends exist at the same time, but we take them at their best, right? And assume that there's only one trend. Notice how even in the romantic period of classical music, there was still a huge variety of different styles of music. Just listen to Chopin and Rachmaninoff. It's not the same where like they have to like you just try to listen to these both composers and answer it for yourself if they're the same or not. I'll bet you all my money that they are not the same. Second clash then on the incentives for artists to grow. I'll do 2 things under this clash. Firstly, compare the incentives to Firstly, then on incentives. Proposition argues that there's the corruption and this actually harms the disprivileged from actually getting recognition, but I'll integrate the responses to this in my arguments. But secondly, we don't think that the only form of art is just NFTs. I beg an analysis on why all forms of art doesn't deserve appreciation and recognition via awards. They then talk about how people just want to be famous, but I'm not sure why this is actually bad, because this actually creates an incentive for individuals to constantly improve their art and win these awards and actually deserve the recognition that they've been awarded. I'm not just sure why that was a comparative claim to be made in the first place, but secondly, on why happiness and incentives is actually exclusive on our side. The reason why it is applicable on our side only is because accessibility towards constructive and formal criticism that is reliable for these individuals to grow is something that is only happening on our side. Meanwhile, proposition has to defend a world where they only get advice and criticism via social media, which is extremely unreliable and nasty for these artists to actually grow. And before I move on to my arguments, defend yourself. 3, 2, 1. Maybe.
Hi.
Yeah.
What if people that are rude and bored leave some negative comments? How will you make sure that only professional one will give feedbacks?
Okay. The thing about negative comments is that it is symmetrical on both sides. The reason why formal criticism is actually able to outweigh that is because professional artists are able to teach their students and teach these artists that their art should not be dictated by societal standards. That is to say, they put emphasis on the uniqueness of the artist's style, and therefore they teach them how to improve in that sense. Meanwhile, on your side of the house, there are still negative comments. You have never provided any mechanistic analysis as to why negative comments don't happen on your side, and you don't tell us how this is actually a good incentive for artists to improve, whether because they do structural analysis on how this actually limits the freedom, we flip your claim, you lose this debate. Moving on to my argument then on how propositions counterfactual worsens the livelihoods of disprivileged artists. This flips their entire claim on corruption. The thesis of my argument is that when there's no formal criticism and awards that open up opportunities for individuals to gain recognition and build up careers to further make art relevant in the status quo, this is something that proposition has to defend, especially when it harms the art industry. With this harms the disprivileged in three key respects. Firstly, education in art is going to be less relevant. That is to say, this affects both the poor and the middle class. The reason why education in art is going to be less relevant is because there are no longer formal criticisms in which could actually help these people who actually want to pursue a career in art. How then is this harming the disprivileged? Two things. A, art is one way in which the poor can have an opportunity to compete with the rich. This is because art is subjective and is an opportunity for them to grow in these fields. This opportunity is thrown away when you remove awards that give them recognition and exposure, as Deputy Prime Minister said themselves, which provides them the advice that they need. But secondly, removing the relevancy of art limits the capacities to compete. The poor is still able to compete with the rich in our counterfactual because art is something that allows uniqueness on an individual scale that is not something that can be accessible by money. Moreover, when you remove formal criticisms, the only people who can then succeed are people who have connections with the successful artists, either by friends or bribery. That's why it's worse on your side. But secondly, our awards no longer exist on your side. The importance of awards is that it allows all sorts of people to gain some form of recognition and exposure and support that allows them to strive as artists in their career. Sure, we concede that there are inequalities between the poor and the rich, but note that without awards, the inequalities will be widened even more because one, rich people can easily promote their art by virtue of advertisements, and secondly, that rich people have more access to resources in pursuing art. The crucial difference on our side is that at the very least, we were able to give an opportunity for them to succeed in their very own ways. That is the uniqueness of art that comes down to the abilities for the individual to be creative. But thirdly, the societal pressure in social media. The paradigm of the disprivileged now shifts into individuals who don't have accessibility towards criticism to improve. This expands more propositions as well, where everyone doesn't have formal criticism. But note, the reason why this is excruciatingly harmful is because from first, we told you that individuals are unable to grow up as artists, and secondly, that you explicitly limit the capabilities for the disprivileged to pursue what they love. What are the impacts of this? Three things. One, you remove the capacity for everyone in art industry to actually grow. And secondly, you cause a toxic community in social media where everyone feeds on informal criticism that perpetuates negative commentary and unsolicited advice. And thirdly, you delegitimize the true meaning of art. For all these reasons, it is our side that truly understands that the beauty of art lies in subjectivity. I beg you to oppose.
Speaker spoke for 8 minutes and 10 seconds. Let's invite Government Whip to start with his speech.
Speaker of the House, can you give me 1 minute for me to organize my rebate? Am I audible? Okay, Speaker of the House, I will start in 3, 2, 1. Members of the House, I would like to refresh our motion today that the House prefer a world in which there is no formal criticism and awards for art. For now, I will do my rebuttals. So first, I will touch about the informal criticism that doesn't make the artist become better. We have laid out that the artist does not want formal criticism, but they want art criticism or constructive criticism, more towards the content and message the artist is trying to show to the society. You said that formal criticism helps the artist explore new techniques, but based on our definition just now, mentioned by our leader of the government, the formal criticism neglected the creativity. The second thing I want to rebut is about the formal criticism will cause the artist, because without the formal criticism, the artist will come jobless. This is wrong. This is actually due to the situation where most of the people in society are formal criticism. Formal criticism is a catalog of bias when the art critic analyzed the art, and we did say that we replace it with constructive criticism. With constructive criticism, the artist will be able to hear the feedback from society, not only feedback, also asking questions, seeking help, and share ideas. You also mentioned that the formal criticism helps to boost art industry, but isn't this will constrain the art into a set of standard and rule? This is not art, it's a pure chaos. Another one is that formal criticism give art variety. No, it's not. Formal criticism judge the technique used. It is just limit the new technique and style. And only small amount of artists can barely take it, whereas most of them will get the problem due to it reject. Now, the second speaker of the opposition team did mention that it will removing the award will cause them to lose motivation. No, this is not due to the award. Where constantly do not get the award, they also get this motivation. They can get award from other way. And also you said that this formal criticism on both sides will just make the art turn into chaos. Art is art, it's not debate. And you also mentioned about trend. So you want the artist to follow the trend. This is still limiting the creativity. And getting famous is not bad. It's not bad, but people are not interested in art. Try to get money just like NTF. Don't expect the society will exploit it. And talking about the criticism from the professional, so the new artist will stuck in the old mindset of the old artist. If this really happened, the art style now will be drawing in stone cave. Another thing is that what are you talking about is constructive criticism. Yeah, let's say advice from professional, and that's our point. And the formal criticism and informal criticism can be both toxic. Lastly, we would talk about that we agree. We wanted the artists to be motivated and improve more of the arts, contracted to their own idea. They said that without the award reject, these artists will receive no exposure to the art. They will be jobless. This is wrong. This is not art. This is pure chaos. And also you said that these artists will receive no exposure in the first place. But most important persona in this debate is the artists who are struggling, who are overshadowed by biased famous artists voted by professional artists that critique them, that only represent a small minority of a certain opinions on arts, and trends are everywhere in society. This is why artists struggles to keep up with the trends, to keep up with everyone's expectation, whether and or not there are artists with appreciate criticism. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 5 minutes and 25 seconds. Now, let's invite our opposition whip to begin with her speech.
Give me a minute to start out my speech. I take POIs verbally, preferably after 6, preferably after 5, because I don't want to be interrupted. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Life without art is a life without meaning, because the alternatives of art would be medicine or law, which are noble pursuits and are necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, and love, the purest form of art, are what we stay alive for. We posit for the reasons that art plays such a big role in human progression. Recognition of said industry through formal criticism or awards is the only way to ensure its longevity. A few points of signposting then. I have a few, firstly, a few extra news rebuttals. Secondly, a clash, and last of all, a case comparison if I have enough time in the end. 2 extreme rebuttals then. First of all, government whips only scroll their case in the end of the speech saying that they can get awards in other ways, but 2 reasons towards why this cannot stand. First of all, this is a scroll of the motion. They cannot stand for this because this contradicts their stance. You cannot defend awards because that's literally the word you cannot stand for, because you prefer award when there's no awards. But this is also a one-liner because there's no other alternatives given by them to like what awards do they stand for. Henceforth, they had no elaboration towards this. So then we do not know how we outweigh or how then it's symmetrical in any sense. The second extraneous rebuttal then is that their whole case of like the fact that art should be done for the sake of art without compensation is literally harmful for the community in them itself. Because understand, this would disincentivize the making of art. Because the parents then, for example, would disencourage children to make art because they have no future in them, because they get no compensation, i.e. money or art for this, or awards for this. Hence, for the art industry in and of itself would probably die out in the future generations if you prefer award when there's no compensation towards these people, where they do not get the recognition that they deserve. We think for that reason you cannot stand. But onto the clash then. The overarching metric of this debate is the longevity of the art industry and which side defends it better. This then brings into the main clash of the artists. Because they are like basically the catalyst to ensure that the art industry actually functions within itself. Proposition gives us a few things, mainly in the Mary's speech, but which is still rebutted either way. But firstly, they touch on formal criticism. They told us firstly that formal criticism limits the creativity of the artist because it focuses on technique. We say that on the thesis, technique is literally what artists should focus on. As an artist, we don't understand why this is harmful, because to literally enhance your art, you need to improve your technique and art style. For example, your piano playing could be like 10 times better if you improve your fingering style and like play style before you even go into the other ways of like getting a better piece or a better like repertoire, for example. Right? You need to understand the basics, which is what formal criticism gives you in like educational institutions. We don't understand why then we're limited creativity in artists. We've also given you literal structural reasons to Harry's speech of why these people will be like more prone to give like subjective feedback to like be tailor-made to your artist in them itself, because the reason there are professionals in the field that know and experience these types of like stress. Therefore, we don't understand why we limited creativity in artists in any way, but we believe that their comparative is one that does. What is their comparative then? The counterfactual is one that focuses on constructive criticism that focuses on feedback. But we understand this has to be informal because like the dichotomy that is formal versus informal, right? Hence where they have to like defend informal constructive criticism. And I'll go into that later. But on the meta of constructive criticism, we think you cannot be fooled by Prime Minister because literally this is our mechanism. Because formal criticism is literally just constructive criticism but phrased differently, right? Because formal criticism asks instructors for providing feedback or tips to their accomplices, for example. This is the same thing that we stand for. But on the impact, even if constructive criticism is exclusive, it comes informally because the dichotomy is then formal versus informal. Your alternative in proposition has to be one that's informal and based on public opinion that's most of the time based on trends, which is literally the flip of our argument and your rebuttal they give towards us. Your feedback that you have defending your vote is one that comes in the form of IG comments or forum discussions, and that therefore it's harmful because all these things are objective to societal window to what is good art, which is based on trends. For example, Gen Z's hyperfixation on bedroom pop genre, leaving like other genres like classical musicians to be left out. Hence, we don't understand why this impact will be any more beneficial in their side of the house when it's going to be focused more objective as compared to like the rebuttal they gave us. But onto the point of awards, then they give us like many things towards this. First of all, they told us that awards disenfranchise non-famous artists because it like makes them have like lesser platform because only the good ones or only the richer ones will be able to rise up. On the flip, I'll just quickly take this out of the debate. Beginning awards are what exclusively gives starter artists the platform to start a career, and intuition pump would be like novice debaters and like open debate competitions to improve because the barrier of entry is open to all. On a comparative then, these non-famous artists in their side of the house will have zero platforms to ever showcase their ability other than the confines of their own homes, so like their mother's praise, for example. We don't understand why your side gets any more better. But secondly, then they talk to us about a toxic competition, and therefore it's like very like harmful for the artists because they get like disenfranchised or they get discouraged. He said this is symmetric because the natural process of all industries, like the academy industry, has competition in of itself, for example, in the classroom. But note that if opposition does despise competition so much, they have to take the burden of not liking competition in all avenues, like the marketing industry. So literally that drives innovation and continuation for people to improve. Third thing that they told us that art should be made for the sake without compensation. He said that on the impact, this is what literally causes the existence of starving artists, where artists don't get compensation for their work because therefore it's literal exploitation of labor. As for the reason why this is harmful, because it will limit the capacity to even live their lives, which directly harms the quality of their art anyways. The premise of their argument has to rely on the fact that art should be made without compensation. That means they have literally no source of income for the artists in their side of the house because they should not be compensated with any form of monetary gain. Hence, we don't understand why their side benefit the artists in any way. Fourth of all, they talk about corruption. This is very weird and very out of pocket, but on the thesis, this is unlikely to happen because it receives these people backlash to like completely bribe the judges and whatever, and of course the truth always comes out. But even if it's true, when we take them at the best, this happens in every avenue of life, either from governments to businessmen. This is inevitable, but at least in opposition, we allow these opportunities for the people to grow and rise up, while proposition takes away the stage for them completely, when only the privileged will probably rise up to the top anyway because of the connection they have prior. But fifth of all, they talk about how famous like short-lived, henceforth they get replaced, henceforth they do not stand for awards. But we say that as previously said, at least it gives them the stage, henceforth we stand proudly on opposition. But on a counterfactual, then they told us like some weird alternative of having the internet to give them exposure. We said this is symmetric at best because on a scale this is symmetric at best because like these sort of social media platforms exist on outside the house. That means also on a scale we have it better because we not only have formal criticism but also have like the internet to give these people exposure and also awards that incentivizes them better. But on the weighing then, understand that the stakeholder then is subjected to two main things. First of all, vulnerability. Their career literally depends on the public opinion of others, and secondly, they have no objective metric that determines their career. And second of all, they also have to rely on the sustainability of the career, and for the very fact that these artists don't have a stable income, they're dependent on the scales that fluctuate. Thus, how do we outweigh on these 2 points? First of all, vulnerability. We ensure the connections for these artists because through recognitions and awards, we're going to give them like the ability to be seen by other prestigious like professionals, for example. But second of all, we also ensure the support structures because when artists more recognized and outside the house, when they are seen as a legitimate industry, they would be seen as someone that should be praised and should be like appropriated in society. But third of all, it also gives them a proper safety cushion because in the event where they do get hate comments that they try to deposit towards us, and at least as artists who have families to support them behind us and also give them positive reinforcements to continue their career. But second of all, on sustainability, we provide a financial capital because by virtue of the fact that you get connections to outside the house, you have more of a capacity to take income. But also because exclusively on proposition, art is recognized to be something exclusively proposition, because they don't have compensation for their art, you also get rid of the whole financial capital and their ability to sustain themselves. You don't understand where they stand. But on the concluding end, because the reason we benefit the artists, which is the most important stakeholder in the debate, and because they are the catalyst to become the what drive the art industry, we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for 8 minutes and 7 seconds. Now that we have heard all the three debaters from all sides, 3 minutes will be given to the reply speakers to prepare for their speech. You may begin now. Three minutes have ended. Let's invite the reply speaker from opposition side.
Can I be heard? Thank you. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. It's quite bold for the second speaker to say I speak too fast, but give out a 5-minute speech, even though she speaks slowly. If that's the case, let's look into the contribution that both have been given. So in today's debate, we on the opposition has told you the reason as to why art, by giving us constructive criticism toward art itself. We say it's gonna give far more better like improvement for the art itself and like maintain the relevancy of the art itself. Why we believe that this is true is because like how when people still critique art, people still think it's the relevance of art. Like how when parents still gets angry of their children when they do that stuff. It still shows us how parents still care about their children and so on. It's the same thing as art when we critique it informally. We say that when formal criticism happens on art, we say people will still cares about art, in which they try to improve the art by giving formal criticism to the artist and give them ways to improve themselves. We say this should not discourage artists in order to like to delve into like the world of art. We say this kind of like criticism should further inspire artists to become better and in the end of the day achieve all those awards. We say the fruitful labor of what the fruitful labor, how that shows the progress of artists who like become from a nobody, become someone who is famous in the end of the day, become someone famous like Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo. We say the awards itself is also considered to be an initiative given by the people towards these artists in order for them to be well known. We have seen like how awards are being displayed. We see how awards are being like given towards the artists in live television. We see how the art itself is going to be well published and people around the globe will know like what has the artist achieved in the day. That's the only thing that's the mutual benefits that only happen with state government. It's that opposite which we provide you by having formal criticism as well as the awards happening within the status quo. However, let's look into what side government has given us so far. So far, what side government has given so far is like lots of like jargon written to art, especially when the third speaker decided to contradict themselves, in which we believe that they already stepped themselves, in which we believe that they should like offer this debate. However, let's look into like the constructive like what has been given by side government. So state government so far is technically the vice versa of what we deem to be. Like for example, they talk about how formal criticism limits to creativity, in which we rebutted within the second speaker and third speaker by saying that we're not trying to limit creativity, instead we're trying to boost up their ideas, which allows these artists to go out of their comfort zone, to try these meetings came from like formal criticism. We said this in turn will help to help improve art as a whole better in that respect. Moving on to the second argument coming from side government is regarding to awards. So they talk about how like awards is not the only way for like artists like to be like well known and so on. They have like other means like social media, internet. However, we also already tell you that the alternative coming from side government is symmetrical happening on both sides, in which we believe that honestly we give like the more publicity and more fame in the day because of the existence of awards. As well as like the exposure of internet also happens on the house, in which we believe that it's going to be more beneficial towards the artists themselves. We say that on our side of the house, not only that, we say that corruption wouldn't even happen, which is one of the major chunk happening. Coming from side government, coming from government. However, they didn't give us much of analysis regarding how corruption happens. Even if corruption were to happen, it happens more on the rest of the house because of how like because of how those who already have a foothold and has connection with the rich, we said the more likely of them succeeding in the day is like it's only like those who have connection. You know, those who are underprivileged, who are considered to be like nobodies within the art industry. We said they are unable to like progress themselves within the industry itself. Therefore, side we like opposite because we understand the value of art instead of side government as a community.
Speaker spoke for exactly 4 minutes. Next, let's invite reply speaker from government side.
Am I audible? Thank you. Thank you, Carl. I would like to start off my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's the parameter, and I will be summarizing what has happened in today's debate. Now, I would like to end today's debate with a peaceful speech. We live in a harsh world where everything has become a competition, and clout has become something that everyone wants an excuse to gain fame. The outcomes that is caused by the possible problems that will occur by awards and formal criticism is not something to be taken lightly. Because, as a summary, we are not holding a competition whether or not formal criticism could motivate the artist, whether or not it helps them. It just puts them in a difficult position. We are talking about whether we should help them. It just puts them in a difficult position. So it's simple. Just by giving an award to someone and giving criticism with an excuse that you are a professional isn't how this generation works anymore. What the opposition team does not understand was that just being able to make these people famous does not mean it actually helps the underappreciated artists to push forward and gain exposure the same as these famous artists could. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot just shut down this motion by saying that criticism helps someone. An award should be given just to give them clout. In summary, opposition side come forth and give their idea, which is that the negative outcomes of a word and formalism does not exist in our side and is beneficial on their side. The truth is that it still happens, which is why cutting down this is the only way to stop it. Now, a little bit of clarification. We do agree that we should help these artists to gain exposure. We do agree that they should be recognized by the society, the attention they deserve. Now, a little bit, now to summarize today's debate, opposition come forth and try to convince us that things like corruption does not likely to happen and all the negative outcomes that we have proven to them does not exist in their side, but it doesn't mean it does not happen in the current status quo. Therefore, winning goes to the side of government. Now, another summarization of my team's points. We have proven to you that formal criticism limits the creativity of an artist, and it does not work effectively for every artist to make more art to keep up with everyone's expectation. Award causes problems and also the possible outcomes like NFT, art plagiarism, bribery, and also corruption in the art industry. Now, we are never going to give you up, and we are never going to let you down. So stand team government. Thank you.
Speaker spoke for exactly 2 minutes. That's the end of our debate. Thank you to all speakers for a great debate. You may virtually cross the floor and shake hands. This concludes prelim semifinals. I thank the adjudicators and the debaters. Let's have all the debaters go back to the main room. Judges may stay for deliberation.